Hey, geometry folks, it's good to be back with you again. Miss Andre and I just want to say what a great job you're doing with regards to the distance learning. We know that even when we're able to come together and be at school, that sometimes it's not easy. And you folks are really doing a terrific job of persevering and getting your work done and really making some good progress in math, even though we're not able to come together. And we want you to know that we appreciate all of your efforts and your hard work. In this video, we're actually going to begin work with the last bit of new material for this year. So we're going to start our unit on three-dimensional figures or three-dimensional shapes, which is unit 10. I'm going to suggest that you take 10 or 12 sheets of paper and staple them together and make your own little notes packet so that you'll have all of your notes for this unit in one spot. That's what I did before I even started my work for this unit. So again, grab a stapler, grab 10 or 12 sheets of paper. It doesn't matter whether they're lined or unlined. Give them a staple in the upper left-hand corner and voila, you'll have yourself a nice little notes packet. So I'm going to go on to, I titled my cover page 3D figures. You can call it three-dimensional shapes, but I made a nice little cover page. You probably want to go ahead and do that also. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip up to the top of the next page, which is the lesson for today. And the lesson for today is going to be all about vocabulary. We're going to look at drawing some of these figures and what the different shapes look like. A lot of this is going to be review for you because you will have seen it back in middle school or perhaps even elementary school. So this is a nice little video to start off the unit with. So the first shape that I want to talk about, I think, is the hardest one to draw. It's the sphere. And when I think of a sphere, I think about it like a ball. So a tennis ball, a soccer ball, a volleyball. A football wouldn't work because it's not round, but a golf ball. And it's really hard to draw this one in 3 dimensions. I'm just going to represent it with the circle. But again, if you think about that circle like a ball, you'll get the feel or you'll get the gist of what it is that I'm referring to. The next one is a cone. And this one always makes me hungry because I think about an ice cream cone or I think about a snow cone. The cone has a base that's circular. So I'm going to say a circular base, which eventually narrows to a point. So you know me, I'm a terrible drawer. I'm going to do the best that I can. So here's my circular base, and I'm going to draw it more of an oval to try to make this look three-dimensional. But there's my circular base, and I'm envisioning that kind of like a snow cone. Now I could also draw this right side up with a base at the bottom, kind of like the cones that they use in sports or the cones that they use when they do work on the roads. I'm going to talk a little bit about the parts of this cone. This circular base is going to have a radius. Remember, the radius is the distance from the middle of that circle to any point on the circle. The height of your cone is going to be the distance from the center of your circular base to that point. So again, sometimes it's called the height, sometimes it's called the altitude. We're going to use those two interchangeably throughout this unit. So again, the height would be the point of our cone down to the center of our circular base. And again, when we refer to the height, we might also call that the altitude. So that's what you need to know about a cone for this video. Pyramid is kind of a cool one. And when I say pyramid, probably most of you already have a vision or a picture in your mind's eye of what exactly it is that I'm talking about. The pyramids that we're going to look at in this course this year are going to either have a rectangular base or a square base. Although you can have other shapes for bases, again, we're going to focus on the rectangular or the square. And like the cone, this one also comes to a point. And when you draw these, it's kind of tough to do this because we're trying to represent a three-dimensional shape on a two-dimensional sheet of paper. So rather than draw a rectangle, I'm going to draw kind of a rectangle that leans a little bit one way. I'm going to put my point slightly off center, and then I'm going to connect that point to each of the vertices on my base. And again, there's my nice little cone. The height, pyramid. The height of my pyramid is going to be the distance from where all of those sides come together up at the top to the center of the base. And again, remember that the height might also be called the altitude. And just so that I can get a little bit of practice drawing this, I'm going to draw one more. This one I'm going to make a little bit shorter and fatter. But again, I just start by drawing that base. There's my point, and I connect that point to each of the corners in my base. And again, there's my altitude. So that's my pyramid. The next one I want to talk about is the cylinder. And if I'm going too fast for you, remember that you always have the option to pause the video, you can rewind the video, you can replay. That's kind of a nice feature that you might have with these videos that you would not necessarily have available to you in class. The cylinder is different and unique in that it has two bases. And these bases for the cylinder are going to be circular. So I would think about a cylinder like a soup can. When I draw my cylinders, I always start by drawing those circular bases. And then I'll connect my circular bases with the sides, so to speak, of the soup can. These circles each have a radius similar to that of the cone. And the height of my cylinder is going to be the distance between those two circular bases. And again, I'm going to think about the height as also being called the altitude. So again, if you remember soup can for a cylinder, you're going to be in good shape there. And the last figure that we have to talk about is the prism, and this one can be the toughest. I want to talk about the triangular prism first. So the triangular prism, like the cylinder, has two bases, but the bases of the triangular prism are in the shape of triangles. The sides of the prism are going to be rectangles. And this sounds a little bit confusing, but once we start to draw it, I think that'll clear up any confusion that you might have. I always start drawing these pictures by drawing the bases. So I'm going to start by drawing two triangles. I'm going to make them right triangles. So there's my first triangular base. And I'm going to put the second triangular base kind of offset from that a little bit above it, but I'm going to make it the same size and shape. So I'm going to make both of those right triangles. And then to create kind of the 3D effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the top vertex on the top first triangle with the top vertex on the second triangle. I'm going to connect the vertex on the right with the vertex on the right. And then when I go to connect these last ones, I'm going to connect almost all the way, and I'm going to do a little bit of dotted work in there to again try to create or show that 3D effect. So again, I've got those two triangular bases. When we talk the height of a prism, we're talking the distance between those two bases. So this guy here, the distance between those two triangles is going to be the height or the altitude of my prism, because I've got these two bases here, front and back, represented by the triangles. And again, you can kind of get a feel for the bottom, the right side, and the left side of that triangular prism. That's where the sides are rectangles piece comes in. Now, sometimes your bases aren't necessarily right triangles. We could draw another triangular prism. This one I'm going to draw a little bit differently. I'm going to draw more up and down or top to bottom. The idea is still the same though. The left vertices I'm going to go ahead and connect. Right vertices I'm going to go ahead and connect. And again, I'm going to try to give this a feel by putting the little dots in there to try to give that more of a three-dimensional feel. But again, you can see these triangular bases. In this case, those bases would represent the top and bottom of my prism. And the height of my prism is going to be the distance between those two triangular bases. So that, in a nutshell, is your triangular prism. The rectangular prism you've seen and done this one before for sure. The rectangular prism also has two bases, but its bases are in the shape of rectangles. So still two of them, two rectangular bases. And like the triangular prism, the sides of this fellow also are rectangles. And when I think about a rectangular prism, I think about a box. So to draw this one, I'm going to start out with kind of two offset rectangles. And again, I'm going to connect each vertex in each rectangle. So that's my rectangular prism. Think about that like the box. And the last one that we need to have a discussion about, I think you'll have seen this one also, is the cube. The cube is just a rectangular prism where all of the sides or all of the faces are the same. So the cube is really just a rectangular prism or a box where all of the dimensions are the same. And I'm going to call them sides, although the real name for that is going to be faces. So for this one, I would think about dice. Like if you play Monopoly, the dice are actually cubes. This one is a little harder to draw because you want to make everything the same size, and I have a hard time doing that. And my cube looks terrible. Let me go back and do that again. Good thing I have an eraser here. I'm almost going to draw one piece behind the back, the other. That doesn't look great, but you get the picture. If you think about the dice when you play Monopoly, you'll have the cube. All right, so that's it for this video, folks. Your homework on Castle Learning, or your practice on Castle Learning, is going to be section 10.1, which is just called Vocab. And this might be the fastest, easiest Castle Learning assignment in the history of Castle Learning assignments, and I sure hope it is. Thanks for bearing with me. Remember, if you have questions, you can always feel free to get in touch via email. I'll be on Teams on video chat on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays from 10 to 11. Might be good to check in there because I would absolutely positively love to see your faces. It helps ease the isolation piece of this, I think, a little bit. But hope you're all staying healthy, hope you're staying safe and taking good care of your loved ones, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters most. All right, take care of yourselves, folks. Miss you. Bye.